Welcome to Warfare Parenting, faith-driven strategies for struggling parents of teens and adult children. I'm your host, Laine Lawson Craft. You're in the right place if you're battling with prodigal children, facing family crises, or seeking spiritual guidance in parenting. Today, we'll equip you with powerful biblical strategies to reclaim your child's destiny and restore hope in your family. Let's step into this faith-filled journey of hope and healing together. Welcome back to Warfare Parenting. I'm Laine, and today we're going to go even deeper into one of the most emotional transitions in parenting, letting go of our adult children. If you listened to our first conversation with Kathy Cunningham, you know this journey isn't about just releasing control, it's about renewing trust. In this follow-up episode, we're going to explore how to trust God in real time when our kids are making their own choices, how to find freedom in this new role, and how to love from a healthy distance without disconnecting emotionally. I am so glad you're here. And Kathy, welcome back.
Thank you. It is so good to be back and just going a little deeper with these subjects.
Well, it really hit a lot of people's hearts. A lot of mamas really responded to both of us about, these principles. We've got a whole another 4-part series where we're going to go a little bit deeper and talk about all of these very hard topics as we face adult children. I'm going to dig right in, Kathy. How can parents discern the difference between support and
Mhm.
interference in their adult child's life?
Yeah, well, there's just a real simple rule of thumb. You just ask yourself the question, am I helping them come up with their own solutions or am I taking over? Am I doing what they can do themselves or am I taking over things that they should be responsible for? And this support, whenever we support them in a healthy way, it will add strength and confidence to their life. It looks like listening, asking questions, offering resources, helping them come up with their own solutions. But interference is taking over and treating them like a child, basically, making decisions for them, pushing your own opinions on them, or just assuming and making them feel like they can't handle it.
Wow. And I have to confess, I think I overstep that. And I do it out of love in defense of my heart. I do it because I love them. Let me ask you, so say there's a topic
Yeah.
that you've got to let's just even say to do with a grandchild.
Okay.
And you know that you want to guide them not necessarily to the answer you think, but at least have them open up their minds to some other options. Are you
Mhm.
following this?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you open up that door? I guess, and I'll let you answer, and then not appear as if you're interfering.
Okay. So let's say you had a concern about something, and I think there is a difference between that. Sometimes it's just our opinion or the way we did it. That's not a concern. That's just a preference. Or if it's a concern, those are two very different things. But regardless, the I think the answer is very similar. And that would be, first of all, you kind of hope they might ask. But if they don't ask, then you could, and I would do this gently, and it depends on your relationship with the in-law, the spouse of your child, and your child. You would just say, would you like some feedback about that? So they're either going to say, they might say no. And then you need to just say, okay, well, I just think you're an amazing person and I love you and I
Right.
trust your judgment.
Well, let me follow up with that, Kathy. What if it's something they're not even aware of?
Yeah, well, that's where, again, you just don't insert yourself into it, I mean, unless there's danger, of course, that's a whole different thing. We're not talking about that. Again, we're just talking about normal everyday life. If you want to maintain a good relationship, it usually is going to be that you step back and let them learn those lessons on their own. You can always say, I noticed something, would you like some feedback? most of the time, if you have a fairly good relationship, they're going to say, yeah. But if you've already been a little bit of an intrusive mom or in-law, then they might say no. And you
Well,
need to
see,
let it
you
go.
helped me. You said, I noticed.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that's a great entry.
hmm
I noticed. And then
hmm
fill in the blank and
yeah,
just say, do you want any feedback on that? And like you said, if they say no worries. I
yeah,
just thought
that's it.
thought about it. And
Yeah,
then
and that's
touch
the
it up.
second part of it. Don't get offended and defensive, because that's
Right.
just going to create more problems. Yeah.
It is. It is. Well, hey, this has been great for me, Kathy. My next question is a little bit more spiritual. What does it look like to trust God practically when your adult child is making choices you don't agree with?
That's such a hard one. And I get that. I've been there. You've been there. We know. And, when that is happening, we often get into control mode because the basis of control is fear. There is fear in the background. They're going to hurt themselves. They're going to make major mistakes that's going to ruin their life. So we're gripped with fear and we tighten our grip on them. But we need to do the opposite and tighten our grip on prayer. So instead of, again, the constant kind of nagging and correction, you pause, you bring those worries to God. Again, if there is something that's major and you need to intervene about that, that's a separate issue. But if it's, again, preferences, choices they're making that you don't agree with or don't align with who you are, the biggest thing that you can do is love them where they are and pray.
Wow. And that is hard to do,
It is.
particularly if you do feel like it's a self-destructive pattern
Yeah.
or a lifestyle choice that you know is not in God's best plan,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Many people know that my son had a 15-year addiction.
Yeah.
And, at first I was always inserting myself, lecturing, trying to fill in the gaps so somehow I could rescue him. I can just tell you it doesn't work. The more I pulled back and did less, the more he finally came to the conclusion he wanted a better life and a different life. And he took the steps to get into recovery, which he did.
Let me ask you, and if you want to pass, listen, that we're real and raw here on Warfare
Sure.
Parenting. What do you do about a same-sex relationship that, is ongoing and maybe even go into years of that? I mean, do you do the same thing, just retreat and pray?
I wouldn't call it retreat. And I know a lot of Christian parents out there are not going to agree with me, and that's okay. But, I've been around a long time and I do things differently than I used to because I used to think I had all the answers. I truly believe when we love our adult children right where they are and they see that love, that unconditional love. Now, it doesn't mean we agree. They know us, they know we're not in agreement, but we still love and accept them for who they are. And we pray. We pray for
Yes.
God to bring the people and the circumstances in that will bring the change that we hope for.
Well,
But the
and
more this things,
yes,
the more we try to lecture and push them into our ways of doing, I have never seen that work out well.
no, no, and it kind of takes us back to the basics.
Yeah,
Love the sinner, but you
yeah,
don't have to love the sin. Is that right,
absolutely.
Kathy?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think the unconditional love is pivotal because
Mhm.
I think that it says what in the scriptures, what is it to do all these things, but without love, it's nothing.
That's right.
So, and
Yeah.
these are our own children.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yes,
would say this, Laine, get into a good support group. When you have any of these situations, whether you have a child struggling with addiction or same-sex attraction or whatever that situation might be, get into a support group of parents that are walking that same journey. It's going to help you so much
it
because
is.
other people will not understand and they will give you bad advice.
Yes, I love to say if you hadn't walked a mile in that shoe, you might just want to pass,
Yes,
and yes,
absolutely. Yeah.
yes. My next question is, how do parents emotionally transition from provider and protector to advisor and encourager?
I think the first thing we have to do is grieve the fact that we're no longer in that position. Especially moms. We most women love being in that provider protector position. But when they become adults, we're no longer that position for them. So we have to grieve that loss. We have to let that go. And then embrace the present, embrace where we are now and the new things that come with that. Watching our children thrive, watching them be able to protect themselves and provide for themselves, or maybe their spouse is, and really just enjoying watching them on their life journey, just like we got to do when we were that age.
That's so beautiful, Kathy, and such great wisdom. So here we got about boundaries. What are some boundaries that help preserve peace while respecting independence? That is such a fine line.
It is, yeah, definitely. Again, I think so much of it is, pulling back and realizing we're not in charge anymore. We're not the main center of the attention anymore. They've got their lives, so we give them space. We let go of these expectations that they're constantly going to want to be with us, constantly be in contact, even invite us to everything that they're doing. Of course, there's a balance there. So not getting so involved in their life that we don't know where we end and they begin, or vice versa. They need to be their own individuals. Also, being very careful, as we've talked about giving unsolicited advice. If we're not asked, or at least asked if they want feedback. Another one, if they're married, or really even if they're on their own, but they're living outside our home, just showing up unannounced. Honor their space, honor their home as their own, just like we would want. So I think those are some of the things. Another thing that's a really hard one is respecting holidays and asking them, are you going to be able to come to our gathering, instead of just assuming and then getting upset when they don't.
Yes. Yes. Well, we've kind of, Steve and I, because holidays were very hard on us because
Yeah,
of, you know, going to this family member, going to this. And so
yeah.
we told our children, so we've got two grandbabies. We got two on the way, Kathy.
Uh-huh.
We've told them,
Congratulations.
please do Christmas at home. Start
Yeah,
your own traditions. We're the grandparents. We'll figure it out. We'll come the day after. We want for them
yeah,
to have their traditions.
yeah.
And I think that was such a healthy way to look at it. And I've really shared that with a lot of other new grandmothers. And they're like, wow, that's so true, because there it respects them. It
Yeah,
also helps them build traditions for their family, and we
exactly.
can make, you know, other ways to
Yeah,
celebrate,
yeah.
right?
Laine,
So,
I love that, because this is one that I usually get a lot of pushback from parents on, because they don't like the fact that their little tradition has been upset. And
right,
I just love that you were so open, healthy enough to be able to release that and really encourage them. I'll tell you what we did, and it's really worked well for our family, is I have Christmas usually the week before Christmas. And so they can do whatever they want on Christmas. They can stay home, they can go on vacation, whatever they want. So our Christmas is, and I make it very convenient for whatever works for all of them. And I can tell you, in all the years, they've never missed, because it works for us. So coming up with creative ideas like that, where you still feel you're getting together, but it doesn't have to be on the day. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be the way it always was. The main thing
right.
is the relationship.
Well, and I just think it's so important that we keep in perspective
Yeah.
for legacy. So we
Yeah.
want our children to build that legacy for their children, so they also too as well build that legacy without all this
Absolutely.
angst and bitterness, and everybody rushing around and miss
Yeah.
all the purposes of the time together.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
love that. I love this question. How can parents rebuild connection after realizing they've held on too tightly? And I will tell you, Kathy, this is a big deal. I see so many mothers with adult children still holding on too tightly. How do we rebuild connection after this?
I think really the essential first step is going to be an apology. Actually acknowledging, I am sorry that maybe I have been treating you like a child, or I haven't respected who you are as an adult. I just didn't know, but I know now, and I'm going to correct that. But then the key thing is going to be, Laine, your behavior. You can say all kinds of stuff, but if you keep doing the same thing, it's not going to mean anything. So the apology, so you got that kind of redo. We're going to reset our relationship, but then following through with the corrected behavior.
Wow, that's great, Kathy. Well, believe it or not, we're almost to our last question, and it is, are there any biblical examples of godly parents letting go, and what can we learn from them?
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot, but a couple that come to mind to me is Hannah. Of course, this was a child that she released to God, actually physically, but I think it's a good example of us releasing spiritually our children to Him. They're His anyway. They're never really completely ours. Obviously, the mother of Jesus, right? Mary. I mean, completely had to release her son into God's hands, knowing who he was. And one that, I think we talk about a lot, but we really don't think about the depth of what happened. And that is the prodigal, the prodigal's father. But you know what? Wasn't there probably was a mom somewhere, right?
Right.
So, I mean, what an example of releasing and waiting without angst, waiting without running after them. He did not run after that child. He waited, he prayed, and when that child came back, he was ready because I believe he worked on himself. He made sure that he was able to welcome him in without bitterness, without resentment, without "I told you," kind
Right.
of thing.
Right.
So yeah, I think there's some great, and there's many more also that we
Yes.
could see. Yeah.
What I love about the prodigal father that has been a new revelation for me,
Yeah.
Kathy, was when he waited expectantly, meaning if you read the actual scripture, it says he saw his son way far off
Mm-hmm.
and began to get excited, meaning I think, he prayed, he believed, and he waited expectantly, which I encourage parents every day, every
Yeah.
breath I have, that
Absolutely.
that prodigal has into their last breath. So make those prayers, petition to heaven, and then believe that God will turn it around. And
Yeah.
it's just so powerful.
Yeah.
Again, I want to say another example from my point of view too is Isaac and Abraham.
Oh,
Abraham took
absolutely. Yeah.
Isaac to the altar, and I put that in all of my books about how I literally, one was with my daughter was very, very sick physically,
Mm-hmm.
from nothing, from no sin or anything, just very sick. And I remember leaving her at the altar saying, Lord, if this is part of my testimony,
Yeah.
that, she comes to see you at a very young age. I'm in it. It's killing me, right?
Yeah.
But
Of
I'm
course.
laying there at the
Yeah.
altar. And then when my kids were making very self-destructive
Yeah.
choices, there was a
Mm-hmm.
point that you are so great at, Kathy, that you help us. I just had to let go and put them on the altar and say, they're your son. Father, first and foremost, you gave them to me to steward, and I've held on too tight, and I must let them go back to you, Lord. And I put them at the altar.
Mhm. But always with that sense of hope, of
Yes,
believing and just having that assurance within you that they're going to come back. This is going to work out. We have to hold on to that. Like you said, as long as we're here, we never know. We don't want to lose hope, and that's where I see so many parents get to, is they just give up. They feel hopeless. And I
yes,
think that's both mine and yours mission to give parents hope that we've lived that. We've lived the absolute worst circumstances and we've seen God turn it around.
yes.
I love the verse in Matthew that says, humanly speaking, it's impossible, but nothing is impossible with God. Yeah.
Well, Kathy, I want you to share for all the audience how they can connect with you. But more importantly, you are building a beautiful community of like minded people. Can you share a little bit about all of those entities for us?
Yes. Well, probably the main thing that I kind of work on, I have a membership. It's called Grace Restored Membership. You can find all my resources at kathycunningham.org. I have a website. And what that membership is, it's a monthly membership, very low cost, and you get more than 10 plus, I think it's probably 15 plus workshops, courses within that membership. We also have a community. We have a live event every month. You've been one of my guests.
Yeah.
And my daughter, my son, I'm actually having my daughter-in-law this month. It's going to be, talking to me about a mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationship. And then we have a support group that we do once a month. So you get a lot for this one fee, and you can cancel at any time. So that to me is that ongoing, and every month you get a new course. I do have kind of a course that I really always promote because it's called Uncovered Grace. And it was my personal healing journey that I created into a course of walking through my hurt from the past, family patterns that did not serve me well, to become aware of them, pray over them, and change them. My thought patterns that were keeping me stuck in a loop of expectations and behavior, and then letting go of resentment and forgiveness. So that's called Uncovered Grace. Like I said, everything's at kathycunningham.org.
Wow. Well, Kathy, as we wrap up today, is there anything else you'd like to say before we get back next week together?
I just always just want to encourage every parent out there, a couple things. Work on yourself, especially if you have a situation where you're waiting for something. Work on yourself first. Draw near to God. Trust Him with the outcomes. He can do big things. And then get into a support group. Get with other people, at least somebody, but a group is the best, and people that are walking that same journey as you. And never, never lose hope.
That is so great. So, listen, y'all, letting go doesn't mean stepping away. It means stepping into a new kind of trust. As Kathy shared with us today, this season isn't about giving up, it's about giving your child back to God daily. It's okay to grieve, but don't forget to grow. Your identity as parent shifts, but your value remains steady. And your prayers, they're still powerful. Keep releasing, keep believing, and remember, God's not done with your child, and He's not done with you either. Thank you again for joining us, and we will see you next week on Warfare Parenting Podcast. Thank you for joining us on Warfare Parenting. Remember, you can overcome even the most challenging parenting battles with faith and the right strategies. If this episode has touched your heart or provided valuable insights, please subscribe to our podcast and leave a review. Your support helps other struggling parents find the hope and guidance they need. Until next time, remain steadfast in faith, and remember, together we never give up on our families. Visit my website too for my new book, Warfare Parenting, a daily battle plan to fight for your child. The first 10 days are free on my website and many other free resources. Go to LaineLawsonCraft.com.